I used to believe love was unshakable, that marriage was a sacred bond too strong to ever break. But one choice, one mistake, was all it took to destroy the man who trusted me most. I thought I could bury my actions under silence and excuses, but betrayal has a way of clawing its way to the surface. This is the story of how I broke my husband's heart, how a single moment of weakness unraveled everything we had built together, and how the weight of that mistake still follows me like a shadow. I grew up in a quiet neighborhood, the kind where neighbors smiled across white fences and marriages seemed to last forever. My husband, Daniel, was my childhood friend. We walked to school together, shared lunches, and even promised as teenagers that no matter what, we would always remain in each other's lives. When we finally married, it didn't feel like a beginning. It felt like the continuation of something timeless. Daniel was everything I thought I wanted: gentle, patient, hardworking. He never raised his voice or left me doubting my worth. He woke up early every morning, kissed my forehead, and carried himself through life as though kindness was stitched into his very soul. I believed I loved him just as deeply as he loved me, and for years, I convinced myself that was enough. But life has a way of testing even the strongest bonds. After nearly 10 years together, the cracks began to show, not in Daniel, but in me. Restlessness settled in, whispering doubts about whether the life we had was truly enough. Daniel worked long hours, sacrificing his own rest to make sure I had everything I needed. I should have admired that. Instead, I began resenting the loneliness his absence left behind. That emptiness carved a hollow inside me, a space that should have been filled with gratitude and patience. Instead, it filled with doubt. I started looking for validation outside our home. Social media became my escape, where compliments from strangers felt like sparks in the dark. I didn't realize those sparks were igniting a fire that would burn down everything Daniel and I had built. It was during this time that I met someone new online. His words flattered me. His attentions soothed the parts of me Daniel's busy schedule couldn't reach. At first, it seemed harmless, conversations about books, movies, dreams. But innocence blurred into temptation. Looking back, I see how fragile love becomes when you invite shadows in. Messages turned into late-night chats. Late-night chats became secrets. And secrets, once they find a place to hide, grow roots that are impossible to pull out. I told myself it was nothing more than words, harmless, that Daniel would never have to know. But betrayal rarely begins as something grand. It starts with small choices piling up until the weight of them crushes the very heart they betray. The man on the other end of those messages gave me something I foolishly believed I was missing: attention without responsibility, affection without sacrifice. He told me I was beautiful, that I deserved more, and in my selfishness, I believed him. Meanwhile, Daniel was quietly breaking himself for us. He stayed late at work, not to escape me, but to build the future he dreamed we would share. He gave up his own dreams so mine could survive. He carried burdens I never even noticed because he wanted to shield me from them. The contrast between his silent sacrifices and my reckless choices only became clear when it was far too late. One evening, Daniel came home earlier than usual. His shirt was wrinkled, his tie loose, exhaustion written across his face. But his eyes still lit up when he saw me. He had brought my favorite dessert, a simple gesture that should have reminded me of all the reasons I had fallen in love with him. But instead of warmth, I felt guilt tearing at my chest. It wasn't long before the truth slipped out. Daniel wasn't searching for it. He trusted me too much to even imagine betrayal. But lies unravel on their own. A message I forgot to delete, a notification I didn't silence. Suddenly, the world we had built was hanging by a thread. I still remember his face when he discovered the truth. It wasn't anger, not at first. It was disbelief. The kind that carves itself so deeply into a person's soul, it never fully heals. His hands trembled as he scrolled through the evidence of my betrayal. His lips parted, but no words came, as though language itself had abandoned him. I wanted to explain, to justify my actions as mistakes born of loneliness rather than selfishness. But betrayal has no explanation that matters. To Daniel, the love he had poured into me had been repaid with disloyalty. The silence between us that night was heavier than any argument could ever be. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, broken. Each word weighed with 1,000 shattered promises. He asked me why, and I had no answer that could make sense. In that moment, I watched the man I loved crumble. His shoulders, once steady and strong, slumped as though the foundation of his world had been ripped away. His eyes, once so warm, looked at me with pain and unfamiliarity, as if I had become a stranger in an instant. I had destroyed him, not with cruelty, not with violence, but with a single devastating choice. That night, he packed a bag and left. No yelling, no curses, just silence. He walked out, leaving behind the echo of a love I had taken for granted. And in that silence, I finally understood the depth of what I had done. In the weeks that followed, the house felt like a graveyard. Every room was haunted by him. His laughter in the kitchen, his footsteps in the hall, the warmth of his presence in the bed we once shared. I hadn't just broken his trust. I had destroyed the very foundation of our life. Friends and family tried to comfort me, but their words were hollow. They hadn't seen Daniel's face. They hadn't felt the weight of his silence. They didn't understand that betrayal isn't just a wound, it's a scar that never fades. Daniel moved on. He built a life without me. Yet when our paths crossed, I could still see the shadow of pain in his eyes. As for me, I was left with the echo of my mistake, a reminder that once love is broken, it's nearly impossible to repair. I've learned that betrayal doesn't just shatter the one you hurt, it breaks you, too, piece by piece, every time you remember what you lost. I share this not as an excuse, but as a warning. The fleeting thrill of being wanted elsewhere is never worth the devastation it leaves behind. Because when you betray the one who trusts you most, you don't just lose them, you lose yourself. So, I ask you this. If you were given the chance to protect the heart of the person who loves you most, would you risk it for a passing temptation? Or would you hold it close, knowing that once broken, some hearts can never be mended?